Hey there, YouTube land. And tonight, in about 15 seconds or so, we're going to be talking about kind of a starter kit to horror. I'm going to give you some alternatives, some different stuff. If you're starting collecting different genres of horror, I'm going to go through different genres, and I'm going to give you like a sampler or something I suggest that you should try. In a previous video, I talked about movies that I think should be on Blu-ray. If you've seen that video, then you probably mentioned that I'd like to see a couple of the house movies on Blu-ray, though there's already one there. Uh, some people got kind of confused with that, so to set the record straight, Scream Factory actually put out the horror show. It stars Lance Henriksen and just a really, really cool little film. The horror show came out here as the horror show in North America, but across Europe and UK and that, it was called House 3. So when they were making House 4, bringing William Katt back, they kind of stuck with this as the official House 3, and House 4 would be numbered House 4 with when it was done. So yes, in fact, House 3, the horror show, is on Blu-ray. Now, let's get to the... So hey there, I'm back, and we're going to get into our starter kit of basically horror movies, horror Blu-rays, DVDs, that you... Basically, if you're starting out watching horror, are movies that I think that you should see. I don't want to go into like basically a lot of the norm stuff that you're going to see on a lot of videos. I'm not going to tell you to go watch Friday 13th. I'm not going to tell you to go watch Halloween. I'm sure you know that already. So I want to go for some alternative choices. So whether you're getting in horror yourself for the very first time, or you've got a better half that you want to get into horror as well, and you realize that some of the big choices may not actually be things that they are interested in, we're going to go through some different genres, and maybe even if you are into a little bit of horror, maybe there'll be a genre here that maybe you haven't really looked at before that we can see from a different angle, different aspect. So I'm going to break them down from different genres, and I'm going to do them kind of quickly because I did this video before and I messed up a couple places after a 35-minute video. So you can imagine how much my voice is gone right now. So we're going to try this. And first up is one that I think, this isn't outside of the whole thing. Here's one, guys. Here's one to put in your collection that's a smart film, a good film. It's extremely well shot. It is literally an example of how to make a movie. There's movies that you get and you're like Citizen Kane, and it's like how to make like a fantastic classic film. Barry Lyndon, how to light a film. But as far as making a great, fantastic horror film and make it work on many different levels, there was one choice for me as the one that is a must to go in your collection. And it's a black and white one, guys. It's Night of the Hunter by Charles Laughton. This would be the only film that Charles Laughton ever directed. Robert Mitchum is amazing in this film. He would also go on to do Cape Fear, which is another great film. So if you dig this one, you're probably going to dig Cape Fear as well. But it's a great addition. Wow, it's a great documentary, and the second disc on this one here. But definitely, guys, no matter what I show you outside of this here, Night of the Hunter is one of the great classics of all time, and it should be in your collection. So if you don't have it there, definitely look into that as being one that you are going to be picking up. First off, we're going to talk about more of like an action horror type of one. And I know we can talk about Resident Evils and the let's not talk about I, Frankenstein. That wasn't a very good movie. Or we can talk about the Underworlds. But for me, for like almost a soundtrack as well, and just like the action and the... Okay, picture this. A guy going along on a motorcycle with a big sword, slashing like up people. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking Blade and stuff like that, aren't you? That's what's going to come to your mind. But actually, it was done years before it with a movie called Demons. Demons is a really cool, very visual horror. I love the way this was done. It was done by Lamberto Bava. It was produced by Dario Argento. It's an awesome film. A lot of little action in it. I love the kind of the pimp character. He's so cool, and he's like kicking ass. He really is a character you don't want to see like anything happen to. There's just so many great scenes in this film here. It's chock full of action and atmosphere, and the Italians really do that best. Then we'll get more into that later on, but action-wise, we'll go with that. I wanted to take a different choice for slasher as well. There are so many different ones I could go out there, like the regular ones that we could have went with, but I decided to go with The Burning. The Burning is, again, we still have all those classic scenes and aspects that you expect from a slasher horror. You've got the you have the camp setting. You have the young, attractive people in peril. You've got the killer out for revenge of something that was done to them. You've got Tom Savini, one of the faces of slasher gore at the time. doing this one here, and it's a one-off. There's no sequels. It's one film. There's no more to get after this unless they come up with a Burning 2 anytime in the near future. But I could see them remaking this film actually, and I'd be not sure if I would like that. But we got Cropsey Killer here, just really cool, very well done. This movie, Friday the 13th Part 2, and Mad Men all came out around the same time. So yeah, and so you're going to see similarities in their storylines, but a lot of them are based on an actual killer. Check it out. The documentary called Cropsey.
So that's a good choice for slasher.
Oh, it's an amazing slice for slasher. It has all the things. We've got the kills in there. We've got the likable teenagers, and you don't get a lot of that in the slasher films, but these do have some likable teenagers, and it goes a bit of a twist. We got a final guy instead of a final girl, just some really cool stuff. So definitely that's my choice for slashers. There are so many other great ones out there, and I'm sure you can think of ones. He Knows You're Alone is a great little film. Movies like almost even like Funhouse has kind of a slasher aspect to it. Happy Birthday to Me is a fantastic film. It's got Glenn Ford in it, Melissa Sue Anderson. I love Happy Birthday to Me. It's one of my favorites of all time. And that goes right up there with The Burning, as in like just great slasher films that are done. And Happy Birthday to Me, by the way, was shot here in Canada. A lot of these slasher films are. Next up is kind of a science fiction horror, and I went with the more kind of like, I guess you could say it's slightly exploitive, and that is Life Force. Life Force is one movie that's remembered a lot for, well, there's space vampires, and two, there's the naked space vampire played by Mathilda May. It was a really gutsy choice for her to actually do the film in that, like, basically naked throat. And but it works, and it makes sense. Her character wouldn't be there in some kind of space outfit. You got to watch the movie. There's a lot of good actors. Patrick Stewart is in this movie, for crying out loud. This is an actual classic film. If you haven't not seen Life Force, watch it. It'll give you a new respect for Tobe Hooper. At least it should. It'll make you know that young Aaron was watching this movie a lot when he was a teenager.
So what is the next subgenre?
My next subgenre, psychological horror, the thriller one. And before we get into that, here's a set that I think everybody should have in their collection. It's one of the prize ones for me, and it's a great way to introduce it introduce this type of genre to people, and it's the Alfred Hitchcock collection. I love this set. There's so many ways. I mean, like, you want to talk about slashers as well. There's movies like Psycho, which is kind of a pseudo slasher. A lot of people think of it as the first slasher. I really don't, but I know a lot of people do, and it has so many amazing films in here. Movies like The Birds will give you an Animals Run Amok type of movie, which Hitchcock did early on. You get Psycho, which is kind of the early like slasher type of film. We have movies like Vertigo, which is very much the psychological thriller, which we're talking about here right now. And we've got stuff like The Man Who Knew Too Much, was kind of like almost like a spy thriller. But my very personal favorite movie on here, Shadow of a Doubt. I love that movie. I was completely in love with Teresa Wright, and Joseph Cotton was just so awesome in the film as Uncle Charlie. If you've not seen Shadow of a Doubt, it was a very personal film for Alfred Hitchcock. He did it at the time when his mother passed away, and it really talks about like small town life, and goes in a very different direction than you would expect for this type of film. The characterization is really great. Hume Cronin, who would go on to like work with Hitchcock in many of his films, actually plays a character on screen in this movie here, and does a great job. The relationship between the father and the next door neighbor is so well done, and they're always talking about planning the perfect murder and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth checking out. But you want an alternative. You want something that's different. That's not Hitchcock. That is Hitchcock, but it's not Hitchcock. Well, we're going to go with Donald Cammell's What of the Eye, classic put out by Arrow Video. You really got to see this movie. David Keith is masterful in this film. David Keith, Kathy Moriarty, but David Keith really steals the show. This really is a character study. This is a very unique film. It's very different, and I wish. I was so excited when this one finally came out. I'd only ever seen this one on VHS back in the day. It was like this came around, and there were certain movies that kind of like fit into this like kind of subgenre of like kind of a more realistic kind of thriller approach. Movies like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, And Rampage is another one that you can think about, which is a really good film. Or The Boys Next Door. That actually had Maxwell Caulfield and Charlie Sheen as spree killers. And you know, there's a lot of stuff you can go with, but Why the Eye is actually my personal pick. Now, as we spoke earlier about nature and amok films, I spoke about The Birds, and you know I could say Birdemic because such a classic. Well, that would make people not watch horror for the rest of their lives. But Piranha. Piranha was just a classic Corman film. I love this movie. It was so well done. Bradford Dillman, I think, is the star that starred in this one, right? I got to remember. I think it's Bradford Dillman. Yeah, Bradford Dillman's in this one. Of course, Kevin McCarthy, Dick Miller, Paul Bartel. Great cast. Kind of actually for the budget and stuff that was done. Actually, it was really cool, good, well done special effects. My better half loves the sequel much better. She's a huge fan of Piranha 2, The Spawning. She just loves seeing the piranhas that fly. And of course, these were remade kind of to make the new Piranha films. Were actually really fun movies. We saw the first remake in the theater, and it was a joy to watch with my son, and it was hilarious. Jerry O'Connell, he was awesome in that one. Piranha, great addition. Definitely worth checking out, and it's a fun film. Next up is the gothic horror, the Hammer type stuff. And when you think Hammer, you think like a couple names come to mind. Usually, of course, it's Ralph Bates. No, Ralph Bates, although a good actor, is probably not your first name when you think about Hammer. You think about Peter Cushing, you think of Christopher Lee. This one does not have both of them. This is not my favorite movie, but this is one of my favorite editions of a Hammer film that's out there. I don't have a lot of Hammer films. I need to definitely get more Hammer into my collection. I really do hint. I need to get more Hammer in my collection. I've been hinting around for something. I'm hoping she catches on. So we'll go with that. But anyway, Dracula Prince of Darkness, great little film. Put out by Millennium Entertainment. Just really great addition. The transfer on this is amazing. The features are great. We got a World of Hammer here, basically talking about the Christopher Lee films, and it really gets you involved and gets you like knowing more about Christopher Lee, but the Hammer films. There's like a bunch of like exclusive like lobby cards in here as well. A great addition. I love this movie. Check it out. Hammer's Horror Dracula. No, actually, it's Hammer's Dracula Prince of Darkness. Horror Dracula is the first one, which is also a very good film. Hammer also did my favorite version of The Mummy as well. Their Mummy films just rocked. Whereas I kind of fell asleep the first time I watched the Boris Karloff original Mummy. Comedy horror. Shaun of the Dead. Student Bodies, I don't own. I love to own Student Bodies. My God, why don't they put that one out regular rather than just have some like video on demand thing? That was my favorite, by the way, guys. You want to type of comedy? Some of my favorite comedies. I own one of my favorite comedies, Kentucky Fried Movie. Love that movie. The other ones were Student Bodies. Great comedy horror film. The Breather is just an amazing character. And Can I Do It Till I Need Glasses? And If You Don't Stop, You Go Blind. If you can find those movies, that's the epitome of comedy for Erin. It is. Yeah, she's looking at me like that's a sad thing. But they were good. They were really good films. Don't let anybody tell anything differently. But I chose Cockneys vs. Zombies. It's the more modern day film. A lot of people like compare it to Shaun of the Dead. I think that's
good introduction.
Yeah, it gets an unfair comparison to Shaun of the Dead because it's not Shaun of the Dead. It's a different film altogether, and it's a really cool little film. Michelle Ryan is in this. Of course, she was in The Bionic Woman in the remake of Bionic Woman. That didn't do that well, but she's gorgeous in this movie. She's always gorgeous. She started, I think, doing like British soap operas. And she did a Doctor Who episode during the specials, the one on the bus. You remember the flying bus one? Yeah, that was her. She was the thief. And would have made a really great companion, to be honest with you. Honor Blackman is in this one here as well. Just such a great cast. A great little film. It's funny. It goes fast, and it never bores you. And as far as the more modern day stuff goes, yeah, really grab this. Body horror. Man, there's two names that come to mind, aren't there? You think Cronenberg and you think Frank Henenlotter. And we could have went with any of those. I mean, I could have brought up Basket Case or Frankenhooker or any of those. Or ones that I really want, like Shivers and Rabid. But I don't have those here right now. And I wanted to just actually show you one that you can actually watch. And by the way, Shivers and Rabid are two fantastic films which you need to check out, as well as The Brood. The Brood is a really good movie. It's coming out by Criterion, and it's going to be one that's going to be in my collection, and it should be in yours too. There's some scenes that freak me out. But Videodrome is a really cool film. Cronenberg just really gets body horror almost better than anybody else. I mean, I love Frank Henlotter stuff. He does some amazing stuff. Brian Yuzna does some amazing stuff. Society is coming out, which is a classic one. But Society is a pretty hardcore film. This isn't the greatest film sometimes to watch for the most uninitiated, but I think it works past that. We got James Woods in here. We have Deborah Harry. There's enough in this one here that it doesn't weird you out too much. It's not going into Eraserhead territory where your better half is left kind of wondering, I think I'm going to leave the room now. You're kind of scaring me. So, Videodrome, just a very cool, fun film. Oh, it's a great introduction to body horror. Indie horror. I love indie horror. I think that watching through the independent horror films, some are great, some are completely atrocious, but they're all done with a lot of heart. And for a great introduction to indie horror, I'm a big slasher fan, so I'm going to go with an indie slasher one here that I think gained like a lot of basically a lot of traction over Facebook and like campaigned it well. They put out the Mask as well with it, and it's The Orphan Killer. This is one that I'm proud to say that people actually went out and bought this one after I did a video of this one originally. And at the time they did, they brought out an Orphan Killer steelbook, and I was so pissed because I bought this really awesome edition of Orphan Killer. And by the way, it doesn't just have the movie, but it has an incredible like kind of a hard rock soundtrack. So if you're into like the more heavy metal type of thing, then I'd definitely check out Orphan Killer. It has a soundtrack, but he did put out a steelbook edition of this here with extras that I definitely got to get down the road. But Orphan Killer, great one. And by the way, the girl that's the scream queen for this one here, I gotta mention her. Her name is Diane Foster, and she is such a sweetheart. One of the nicest people I ever met at any of the conventions that I went to. She came up, she gave me a hug, and she was a sweetheart. I mean, like, she really was a sweetheart. Exploitation. It's such a fun genre. I love exploitation, and I'm going to go with fancy exploitation. There is such a thing. There's like different levels of exploitation. I'd say this would be a thinking man's exploitation film. A highbrow exploitation film. No, warning here, guys. No kids should be watching the film that I'm about to show you right now. Make sure that the kids are long gone to bed before this movie comes on, because although Linda Hayden is gorgeous and so is Fiona Richmond, and I kind of want to watch this movie right now. It's the Blu-ray DVD edition of House on Straw Hill. Now this actually is almost a cheat because it gives me two genres at once to give you guys. Something that I really think. See this movie here? Let this be the exploitation one you start with. It's a cool one. It's different. It's a really kind of trippy. And again, tons of nudity, tons of sexuality. Know that going in, and be okay with that. And if this is something you introduce and you better have to, make sure that he or she is okay with that as well. But it also has something else that they can watch and that they will watch with you. Even most people that don't watch the horror movies, they'll sit down to watch the documentaries and stuff with you. My better half will. And this one here has a great documentary in the first 3,000 copies of this is Banned the Saddest Videos. Video nasties. Just incredible stuff. You got your horror documentary and your exploitation right here. House on Straw Hill. Great film. Was put up by Severin Entertainment. I love Severin. Full Moon. With Full Moon, you can expect certain things. You can expect attractive girls, dolls or puppets or little people. A lot of different stuff, and just almost comic bookish horror. Because, well, the guy that makes them, Charles Band, is really in comic books. So he makes his horror films much like comics. They're continuations and stuff like that. And he really got on the Nazi kick just a little bit too much recently. But when he was good, he was really good. And we're going to go with Tourist Trap. Now, Tourist Trap is a...
Why did you say Tourist Trap?
I don't know. I was thinking like...
Charles Band.
Tourist Trap. He did the Tourist Trap. Yeah.
Okay.
That's an early one. Okay, this is not Tourist Trap I'm talking about. I don't know why I said Tourist Trap. See, look, I just did this video. It took 35 minutes for me to do, and I'm redoing it. It's Dolls. Dolls has all the classic bandy and stuff in there. It gets the kind of like the dolls, which he would use in a lot of his movies. There's been like 10 or 11 Puppet Master films, guys. Yeah, he was really into that. And that's not even including characters like Ooga Booga, Dangerous Worry Dolls, Head of the Family, just demonic Ginger Dead Man, demonic toys, Evil Bong. But Dolls is actually a really good film. It was one of my picks for Scream Factory release of the year, actually, and just a really great film. Definitely check it out. It's like a modern day, like kind of a gothic fairy tale type of thing.
It's a good introduction because it's a one-off. There's no
there's no sequels to follow up with. There's no nine other movies. You're not going to get caught in between. It's not like Subspecies where you're going to have to go back and say, and what you go in Subspecies, you watch the second one, you go back and you watch the first one, and you're like, how come the main actor from Subspecies 1 isn't in any of the other Subspecies films?
And it has all the stuff that Full Moon is.
Oh yeah, it has everything that's famous for. It has the kind of like the fairy tale aspect. That's the comic booking aspect. It has the special effects when they were actually done well by Full Moon. We get a lot of the, we get some of the stop motion stuff. We get like some really kind of different stuff, and the Full Moon actors kind of start in there. They're attractive actors. And by the way, if you ever watch the video, and I'm sure you've seen it many times, by Aha called "Take on Me," the girl, and that the
One of the girls.
yeah, well, there's one girl in "Take on Me," and
No.
she is one of the girls in this one here. One of the let's just say she's not as nice as she is in "Take on Me." "Take on Me" would mean a totally different thing if it was said by the character from Dolls. Yeah. Giallo. There's so many ways to go with this. I thought about going with Sergio Martino's Torso. It was such a masterful film, so brilliantly directed. It brings out this kind of like really cool type of film. But I went with Tenebrae because Tenebrae is a better Giallo overall. For me, I know this is going to be kind of like what do I know? Kind of a controversial thing to say, but I liked it better than Profondo Rosso. I liked it better than Deep Red. This has a great reveal at the end. Basically, you got a horror writer that's over in Italy, and there's a killer that's around, and it's killing people in the ways that people have been killed in his books. He wants to basically exonerate himself because the murders are being done like they were done in his books, and he wants to catch the killer, and there's people helping him. It's just an incredible film. There's some great death scenes in this. There's one scene in particular that's extremely attractive. Damn, man, what you don't have to say that. Okay, Italian lady, because Italian women in these movies are all extremely attractive. They're all like the long dark hair, and just it's an Italian trait, I guess. I'm guessing. So every Italian giallo movie has some overly attractive females in them. So I grew up thinking that Italy must be the place that has like all beautiful people all the time. Like all the men were like manly, and the women were like all super attractive. And that's got to be a great place to live. It's like got all this stuff, and I've never been to Italy, but maybe it's like that. Is it like that, guys? Have you been to Italy? Yeah, probably not. I'm probably gonna be disappointed. But it's got a really cool murder sequence near the beginning of it, and it's very brutal. It's done with an axe, and the reveal for this movie I don't want to give away because it's really good. Haunted house movies. My first choice was The Changeling. I even thought about Annabelle Horror, but I thought that's probably not the best choice to get anybody interested in the haunted house films. But this is. Legend of Hell House is a great little film. Stars Ryder McDowell and Pamela Franklin. Just a very cool film. If you haven't seen it, really do recommend it. It's got a great cast. Moves at a cool, decent pace. I know a lot of these haunted house movies can go at a slower pace and can be harder to get people into. And there's so many, there's more modern day ones out there. But for me, this is one to definitely pick up. And come on, is that not a sexy cover? Come on, is that not sexy? There's a total sex in this cover. Possession films. My better half recommended The Exorcist, and no, I can't not recommend The Exorcist. It definitely is that benchmark film. But like I said when I first started this, I'm not here to show you the benchmark films. I'm going to show you alternatives that you can start watching. Ones that you either, if you want to get into this genre, is another way to go about it, or if you want to get your better half in this genre, is another way to go about it. and I chose Anvil 2: The Possession because I just think it's a really good film that doesn't get enough credit and enough love. Anvil movie done by Italians, so what's better than that? Fantasy horror. Again, there were many that I could have went with. Nightbreed is an amazing film. Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 are amazing choices. But you want an alternate, a different one to pick? Well, I'm going to talk about the Witchcraft series with Will Spanner and a bunch of naked women. No, I'm not going to talk about the Witchcraft series. I'll talk about that in an exploitation video down the road. But Lord of Illusions is an extremely underrated film starring Scott Bakula. The last movie that was directed by Clive Barker, and check it out. Now, if you really want to get your better half into horror, be it male or female, here's a movie that takes a lot of the preconceived notions that people have about horror films and turns them on their head and makes you think in a good way. It really makes you think, okay, this, they'll say like this is horror. This is not at all what I expected horror was, and it's Ginger Snaps. Ginger Snaps has two strong female leads, something that a lot of the people that were against horror movies, like scream misogyny and stuff like that. This flies in the face of the whole misogyny aspect of it. And as for like the slasher aspect and misogyny, you might want to check out the Slumber Party Massacre movies, the first one especially, as it's written and directed by a female, and yet still has all the aspects of exploitation. Now, there was some controversy about it, like saying that it was meant to be parody, and some shots were done to make it make it seem more exploitive than parody. That Roger Corman had changed it a bit, but if you seriously watch Slumber Party Massacre, the parody aspects are really still there, especially in the pizza scene and stuff like that. But I wanted to talk about Ginger Snaps, which is just a fantastic little film. A great werewolf movie. It has great special effects. Very personal film. Great characters and really different. But if you want to get somebody into horror that hasn't watched it, Ginger Snaps is a great choice. Remakes. People recall in horror when they think of remakes. And I was going to come in here first, and I had some thoughts. Movies like David Cronenberg's The Fly, or John Carpenter's The Thing, just classics. But they were almost re-envisionings as well as remakes, and they did such great jobs. I didn't want to touch on those, which you've probably already seen anyway. And I wanted to go with one that's a more modern one, and I thought was just well done. I think it's going to be a classic. Let me know what you think of it. I know it's polarized some of the horror community, but for me, it's an out-and-out classic film, and it is horrific. My better half has not watched this one. It's a pretty brutal one. I'm not sure if I'd love her to see it because it's such a well-shot film, but I'm not sure if I want her to see it because it is such a well-shot and realistically done film. And the movie's Maniac with Elijah Wood. Of course, the original Joe Spino movie was an amazing achievement. We had, of course, effects by Tom Savini and just like a very different, very unique film. This goes in a direction that I knew Elijah Wood could do this. Elijah Wood's a huge horror fan, by the way, guys. So give him props for that alone. Elijah Wood, it will tell you right away. He said, if you could put on any horror movie right now, just have it on in the background. It's Suspiria. He loves Suspiria. He loves the visuals of Suspiria, and he says it's a movie that it's almost like you could have it on as a visual wallpaper in the background. It's just fantastic. And it was one of I think it was Rue Morgue or something did an interview with him on that. But a great remake. Anthology horror, and again, so many ways to go with this one. Trilogy of Terror could be mentioned. We could talk about the original movie Dead of Night, which was the first anthology horror, I think, and there's a lot of different ways. But I decided to go with Mario Bava's The Black Sabbath, and this edition right here. Get this one from Arrow. Why get this one from Arrow? Because it has all the different versions of the film, and you're gonna want this when you're because you want to see it. This is going to be a fun one. You guys are going to have fun with this movie. It's got 3 or 4 stories in it. The Drop of Water story is the creepiest in my opinion, and one that definitely has to be done. Zombies. Let's talk zombies. And again, I thought about Return of the Living Dead. I even thought about Return of the Living Dead 3, which I don't own. I really got to get that. Is that out on Blu-ray, guys? It's just such a fantastically cool movie. But I went with Day of the Dead, for me the best in the original Romero films. I mean, the first three Romero zombie films are fantastic evolutions of on one another. They really do what sequels are supposed to do. They take the original idea and they move it into like different, unique, very interesting concepts. So we got the original, like a very like politically minded, very dark, stark, contrasty Night of the Living Dead, and what goes into like almost like a satirical vein, basically type of consumerism with the Dawn of the Dead, and we get into like the more dystopian type of future with the militaristic aspects of it, and talking about like basically how people will react in this type of when this happens, and it will be a precursor to many movies to come. Day of the Dead was just a classic film. And last but not least, Splatter. Splatter is a much some people love it, some people hate it, but one person mastered in it. I had a book, I think it was by John McCarty, who called Splatter Movies, and he had some really cool ideas in there. But for me, when I think Splatter, I think Lucio Fulci. And I went through different Fulci movies to put on there, but at the end of the day, one of the greatest, the great, is famous eye scene, a zombie fighting and beating a shark, the huge zombie from the beginning of the film. Man, Zombie Flesh Eaters, just an incredible, incredible movie. This is a really great edition of it. So pick this one up, by the way. You watch this one, and they'll have fun with it. I mean, my son, I watched this with him, and he's like, Dad, I'm not sure. I'm really zombied out. There's so much out there, like Walking Dead, and so many zombie movies. I don't think I can take another zombie film. We put this on. He was like really into this within the first like couple minutes of the film, and he wanted to know more about Fulci as soon as this movie was over, because he really impressed him that much. And it's really hard sometimes to like grab or grasp somebody that's either not into it, or they're kind of like jaded on the whole aspect of it. So to get somebody like my son, who's like he's 20 years old, and he's like he's watched a lot of the horror, and he's like this isn't cool anymore. This has been around with Walking Dead and all that's around. To get him really interested in the genre that has literally been played out so much recently, it's a hard thing to do, and Zombie Flesh Eaters pulls it off, and it's a great splatter film. There are a lot of great gut-wrenching, gut-munching scenes in this movie. So here we go, and I got this one under 35 minutes. Thank God, because my voice is completely gone. I want to do one more, hopefully, before I go to bed tonight. So have a great night. Say hi to the giant lobster in the sky. For me right now, it's time for tea, because I redid this video, and oh my God, an hour and about 70 minutes later, we finally get this video done with 32 minutes. So thanks for watching. For me right now, it really is time for tea. And setting up for the next video. Have a good one.